Just from my perspective, I think something that like that could make more sense in like a glossary section versus an introduction. I thought with the in my and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought some of the as we've adapted some of the language and the supporting implementation, we've got at some of that with the updated recommendations. But if we're not quite capturing that, um, I suppose we start to verge on what's technical and what isn't, in terms of what we can do in the next hour and 45 minutes here. Um, but how about we work with our LCC staff to determine if there's a technical place to add some of that piece into sort of a glossary term or in the sort of implementation notes section of the recommendations. All right. Any other comments? If not, I'm going to turn it back over to Chairport.
Thank you, Representative Howard. Um, really appreciate the work that everyone did on the narrative statement. I think it does capture the overall work that was done in this task force, as well as Minnesota's unique sort of landscape. So really grateful for everyone who put in the time on that. Now for another key milestone, we are going to review and vote on our draft recommendations. I'm so excited to see how far we've come in 8 meetings and just deeply grateful for the dedication and thoughtfulness each of you have approached this opportunity. And I'll start by briefly walking through our process for today. So we have 19 draft recommendations to consider. In pursuit of wisely and effectively using our limited time today, staff polled task force members ahead of this meeting to seek guidance on which recommendations to present for individual roll call votes. As noted on this slide, we have two categories today. The first is sort of akin to a consent agenda. These 8 recommendations received no requests for an individual roll call vote. So we'll do a brief walkthrough of each, highlighting edits to one of them since the last meeting, and then we'll move on to a roll call vote for the full set of these 8. The second category consists of 11 recommendations, which will have individual roll call votes by virtue of a request by one or more task force members and or they have had a substantial change in the recommendation content since the January 8th task force meeting. Rep. Howard and I directed staff to make a final round of edits just for clarity and consistency, such as just wording so that they begin with the task force recommends, things like that. Also at our direction, staff consolidated implementation considerations and supporting content included in some of the previously longer recommendations into one location, which is Appendix B. And we want to keep this important information in the report so that it is available for the continuing work. One note on voting protocol, per LCC practice, a recommendation passes with a simple majority vote of members present at today's meeting. So let's dig into that first set of recommendations. So this set includes 8 draft recommendations, 3, 4, 9, 10, 11, 12, 18, and 19, and they'll appear on the slide deck in this order. Recommendation 3 is the only one with substantive changes since the last meeting, and there are 2 slides for that recommendation. Let's see here. The other 7 recommendations in this section each are on one slide apiece and will have no red text due to no substantive changes. This is draft recommendation 3. The highlighted text is in red. And note that we hope to move through this section as efficiently as possible, given that there were no concerns raised or requests for standalone votes. Does anyone have any clarifying questions or see anything that is incorrect? So this is that the task force recommends Minnesota Housing develops a policy framework to support the sustainability of regulated affordable housing assets as a strategy distinct from new construction, traditional preservation, and the preservation of naturally occurring affordable housing. All right, not seeing any flags here. This is the second slide here, just with everything as it will appear for the vote. Okay, I think we can move through draft recommendation 3. So for draft recommendation 4, this has no changes since the last time we discussed. It recommends that Minnesota Housing develops, revives, and or implements new state strategies, tools, funding resources, and processes to address the stabilization of regulated affordable housing. Take a look through this, see if there are any flags, but we hope to move through these efficiently. Okay. Draft recommendation 9, the task force recommends that deals are closed faster. So this is a shorter one. Thank you. Draft recommendation 10, the task force recommends that affordable housing projects can include asset management fees in the underwriting costs. Pretty clear one there. Seeing no flags, let's go on to 11. The task force recommends the retooling of underwriting standards to reflect expected future economic conditions and modify underwriting policies to move from 1.0 debt coverage ratio in year 15 to a minimum of 1.1 or 1.15. Seeing no flags, let's go to number 12. The task force recommends considering incentivizing leverage of other public resources in the competitive funding of capital housing investments. No flags. Let's go to 18. The task force recommends directing the Department of Commerce and the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency to partner with affordable housing providers and the insurance industry to collect data on the state of the insurance market for affordable housing providers. It and draft recommendation 19, the task force recommends directing the Department of Commerce to partner with MHFA, affordable housing providers, and the insurance industry to assess the benefits, costs, and feasibility of state-based financial support to mitigate excessive insurance premium increases, as well as to protect affordable housing providers that may be at risk of losing insurance coverage. Great. There will now be a roll call vote to approve recommendations 3, 4, 9, 10, 11, 12, 18, and 19 together as a whole. Um, I move to approve these 8 recommendations as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Joe. The motion has been seconded. Evelyn will now conduct a roll call vote.
Member Abraham,
Approve.
Member Brennan,
Yes.
Member Brickletti,
Yes.
Member Cashman,
Yes.
Member Cocking,
Aye.
Member Cordis,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Flannery,
Yes.
Member Gozi, Member Hendel,
Yes.
Member Howard,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Lenhoff,
Yes.
Member Port,
Yes.
Member Solly,
Yes.
Member Sherbin,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Walker,
Yes.
Member Zhang.
Yes. Did you get me?
Yes.
Okay.
There being 17 ayes and 1 absent.
The motion prevails. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Evelyn. And Representative Howard, I will pass it over to you for the next part of our review and voting.
Thank you, Chair Port. We're now going to move to recommendations where we're going to have a roll call vote one by one. And there'll be a group of these, some where there were changes. And so we'll provide a little more space for those to kind of walk through what those changes were and make sure folks have a chance to ask any clarifying questions. And some where there haven't been changes, so we'll probably have a little bit less conversation on those, but still an opportunity for clarifying questions as we work through each of these recommendations. And so otherwise, it'll look similar to our last grouping where we'll go through one by one. It's just we'll have a little bit more space and time for these, and we'll take a roll call vote on each recommendation. All right, this is draft recommendation number 1. And I'll just read the first sentence here and let folks review. And for the ones that we have some changes, you'll see those in red. And so I'll call those out specifically. Here's the new, sorry. We have a number 1 does have new language here. So here's the new language. The task force recommends that the Minnesota legislature partner with Minnesota Housing, nonprofit housing leaders, tenant rights organizations, and Minnesota renters to coordinate 2 evaluations. 1, to evaluate permanent supportive housing and deeply affordable housing models and potential flexibility and regulatory requirements of existing affordable housing, further defined in Appendix 2. The other, to research options and develop recommended changes to QAP scoring and other recommendations or options to provide increased financial and operational flexibility for housing providers. I'll just share a little context. This comes from our conversation about some of the recommendations where we as a task force said that these are really important issues we need to further study and guide work forward. And thank the members of the task force that worked to develop this recommendation that's inclusive of folks like tenant rights organizations and folks that I think we need part of the conversation as we do this important next step in the conversation. We'll open it up for any clarifying questions. Senator Port.
Yeah, can I just for technical fix, can we just have Minnesota Housing show up the same throughout the report, whether it's Minnesota Housing or Minnesota Housing Finance Agency?
That makes
I will
sense.
make that note.
Thanks, Evelyn.
If I'm not seeing any questions.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find my question, Mark.
Okay. Yeah,
So my question is, I think this date looks new to me. Is this the date, I think the previous date was 2026. Was it intentionally changed or is this a mistake?
that is a good flag. I remember seeing 2026. So I think I would support switching that to 2026 as a technical or as an edit to what we will vote on. Jesse,
I was just gonna add that I think the next recommendation does make it confusing why it would be 27 because the QAP one coming next is 26. So it seems the timing might be off.
thank you for that flag. We will, in Evelyn can help us with process, but for our vote, we will make that. Do we need to make a motion to make that edit before we vote, or if we can just do that as a sort of technical?
The vote would just be on draft recommendation number 1 as edited in this meeting.
Got it. Katie,
Thank you, Representative Howard. One other technical edit that Sam caught. Appendix 2 should be Appendix B. It is the second appendix, but just a minor technical change.
thank you. When I see Jesse made that point too in the. So if there are no further comments, I will make a motion to approve draft recommendation 1 as amended by the task force conversation. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Zhang.
Member Abraham,
Approve.
Member Brennan,
Yes.
Member Brickwetti,
Pass.
Member Cashman,
Yes.
Member Cocking,
Pass.
Member Cordis,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Flannery,
Yes.
Member Gozi, Member Hendel,
Yes.
Member Howard,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Lenhoff,
Abstain.
Member Port,
Yes.
Member Solly, Member Solly,
Yes. Sorry.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Walker,
Yes.
Member Zhang.
Yes.
There are 15 ayes, 3 abstentions, and 1 absence.
The motion prevails. We'll move on to the next recommendation. Here is draft recommendation number 2. The task force recommends Minnesota Housing and Local Suballocator Jurisdictions to amend current qualified allocation plans for the allocation of low-income housing tax credits by June 1st, 2026, to revise selection criteria structure and consider what additional changes are required once evaluations of 100% permanent supportive housing and integrated permanent supportive housing models are completed. Are there clarifying questions? If not, I will move the draft recommendation number 2. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second.
Member Abraham,
Approve.
Member Brennan,
Yes.
Member Brickwetti,
Pass.
Member Cashman,
Yes.
Member Cocking,
Abstain.
Member Cordis,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Flannery,
Abstain.
Member Gozi, Member Hendel,
Yes.
Member Howard,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Lenhoff,
No.
Member Port,
Yes.
Member Solly, Member Solly,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Walker,
Yes.
Member Zhang.
Yes.
There are 14 ayes, 1 nay, 3 abstentions, and 1 absence.
The motion prevails. We'll move on to the next recommendation. There are no changes to this recommendation. The task force recommends that the Minnesota legislature and local municipalities enact policy changes that make it easier to build and preserve affordable homes, including land use and zoning reforms, process improvements to improve speed of development, and reducing or eliminating barriers such as rent control policies that have been detrimental to the development, sustainability, and preservation of affordable housing. Are there any clarifying questions to draft recommendation number 5? If not, I will move draft recommendation number 5. Is there a second?
Second.
Member Abraham,
Approve.
Member Brennan,
Yes.
Member Brickwetti,
Yes.
Member Cashman,
Yes.
Member Cocking,
Abstain.
Member Cordis,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Flannery,
Yes.
Member Gozi, Member Hendel,
Yes.
Member Howard,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Lenhoff,
Abstain.
Member Port,
Yes.
Member Solly,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Walker,
Yes.
Member Zhang.
Yes.
There are 15 ayes, 3 abstentions, and 1 absence.
The motion prevails. Draft recommendation number 6, there's no changes. The task force recommends that the Department of Public Safety convenes public safety leaders in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Hennepin County, Ramsey County, Metropolitan Transit, select greater Minnesota cities and counties, and individuals with lived experience to develop and implement a demonstrated project that would include, and we have some specifics that I'll let members read. Are there any questions, clarifying comments? If not, I'll move recommendation number 6. Is there a second?
A second.
Member Abraham,
Approve.
Member Brennan,
Yes.
Member Brickwetti, Member Cashman,
Yes.
Member Cocking,
Abstain.
Member Cordis,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Flannery,
Yes.
Member Gozi, Member Hendel,
Yes.
Member Howard,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Lenhoff, Member Port,
Yes.
Member Solly,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Walker,
Yes.
Member Zhang.
Yes.
There are 15 ayes, 3 abstentions, and 1 absence.
The motion prevails. Next is draft recommendation number 7. There's no changes. The task force recommends that Minnesota Housing or a designated entity tracks key performance indicators related to the health of the affordable housing industry. Any clarifying questions?
Representative Howard, if I can note, there actually was a small edit in this one that includes the or a designated entity
Oh, that's right.
after Minnesota Housing, just to note that addition.
Thank you. Yes, or a designated entity is a change based on some discussion about wanting to make sure that we have flexibility to identify, the entity best able to meet this recommendation. I will move draft recommendation number 7. Is there a second?
Second.
Member Abraham,
Approve.
Member Brennan,
Yes.
Member Brickwetti,
Yes.
Member Cashman,
Yes.
Member Cocking,
Abstain.
Member Cordis,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Flannery,
Yes.
Member Gozi, Member Hendel,
Yes.
Member Howard,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Lenhoff,
Abstain.
Member Port,
Yes.
Member Solly,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Walker,
Yes.
Member Zhang.
Yes.
There are 15 ayes, 3 abstentions, and 1 absence.
We move on to draft, it's approved draft recommendation number 8. We have 2 slides here. This is a new language that we have before us. The previous language is above, and the replacement language includes: the task force recommends that Minnesota Housing and other public lenders collaborate with HUD to establish a subordination agreement for HUD FHA insured first mortgage products with the goal of maximizing access to affordable rental housing financing tools while recognizing the state's investment in affordable rental housing as a bona fide debt, mitigating risk to public funding, and ensuring long-term affordability. Are there clarifying questions on the change to draft recommendation number 8? I'll open that up for folks. Andrea has a question.
Yeah, thank you. I think this one has been around and around a few times where the previous language that was recommended by the administrative work group, administrative change work group, is substantially very different from the new language. And the new language has not been discussed by the full task force. There's not been an opportunity to do that. My concern with the new language is that it is people don't understand it. I don't think that the task force members fully understand, and as Jesse just put in the chat, that it's not understood. I don't know that anyone understands it other than Minnesota Housing's attorney. And this is really, the previous language was really just intended to make sure that that Minnesota Housing is moving forward on a subordination agreement with HUD so that HUD lenders in Minnesota could access HUD financing for refinance of existing affordable housing developments. And the revised language is really, I think, positioning this recommendation to be an endorsement of Minnesota Housing's negotiating position with HUD. And I don't know that that's our intention here. I know that that was not the intention of the group that put this forward. And so I think that there's I don't know if this is a point of order question, but I think that the task force needs to fully understand what it is approving with this language. And I don't think that the task force has a good understanding either of what it means if Minnesota Housing and HUD do not come to terms or agreement on the subordination language, and therefore the HUD lenders in Minnesota don't have access to this federal resource to support developments and refinancing. So I have a big problem with the rewording of this language without full discussion and understanding on the part of the task force members.
So we can do this. This language does come from Minnesota Housing, so we could ask James to explain. The other thing, I know that sort of the discussion on this a little bit has been like, if this negotiation is happening on an ongoing basis, is there really much value add to have a recommendation at all? So it feels like another reasonable thing the task force could do would be decide not to move forward with recommendation number 8. But how about first, I go to James to see if he could help provide a little context to the new language.
Yes, thank you, Representative Howard and Andrea, for raising that item up. Excuse me, just getting over a head cold here, so if I cough, apologies. So first, just to clarify, so developers in the state of Minnesota do still have access to HUD-insured mortgages. Where the issue comes up is in the instance where there is state appropriations that were structured as deferred loans that would need to be subordinated to that debt. So in instances where there's not Minnesota Housing debt on a project, that is very much still an accessible tool and is still used out there. I mean, the short version of the concerns with the HUD subordination agreement is that it allows HUD to direct the terms and extend the terms of state debt within projects. And of course, that can get very technical, and the language is very technical here. The reason for the proposed language, in short, is to recognize that this is something where we want to protect the state's investments, where we do want to mitigate any risk to public funding, where HUD may otherwise be able to change the terms of that debt, and to protect long-term affordability in those projects. So it is more general, if also more technical language in there to try to get us to a shared conclusion on that. We are very, very close. These are active negotiations right now. And when I say right now, I mean this week, last week, and next week, where hopefully this will all be resolved. I would be very comfortable with removing this item altogether from the task force language. Where I would be uncomfortable with the existing language is the direction to approve. That was something that was a concern of Minnesota Housing, I think, going all the way back to the early formation of this particular recommendation. So we do want to get a resolution. It is technical language. I'm open to amendments on that if we need to have an additional discussion. But it is something that is important to the overall work that we do.
As I'm hearing the discussion, I think where I'm leaning, and I want to hear if other task force members agree, is to just not move forward with this recommendation number 8. It doesn't feel like we have consensus around either the previous or new language, and there's questions about its impact to begin with. So I think that would be my recommendation. Just from a procedural standpoint, since it's on the agenda, do we have to take a vote on it, or could we just move forward and not take a vote? Just question to staff on the process piece.
Yep, if we are scrapping the recommendation, there does not need to be a vote.
Got it. Ellen.
This came from the administrative work group, and I was actively involved in that with Jesse and others. And so I agree that the language has substantively changed and doesn't match the intent of the administrative group's suggestion originally. And so I would be in favor of taking it out of the recommendation.
All right, let's proceed in that fashion. We will not take a vote on recommendation number 8, and we'll move on to number 9. Or recommendation 13, excuse me. There's 2 slides here. There is changes to this recommendation in red. So I would direct folks to those pieces. I'll read the top line, which also has some changes. The task force recommends adequate government service funding to be paired with capital funding for PSH units to help ensure full funding for services at a level that matches the need of the proposed tenants and aligns with the public priority populations. Are there clarifying questions? There's more direction or more change in the bullet points as well, but does anybody have any clarifying questions? And maybe if not, we can move to the second slide, which has the complete recommendation without highlighting, which is what we'll be voting on. If not, I'll move recommendation number 13.
Second.
Commissioner Young, seconds, thank you.
Member Abraham,
Yes.
Member Brennan,
Yes.
Member Brickwetti,
Pass.
Member Cashman,
Yes.
Member Cocking,
Abstain.
Member Cordis,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Flannery,
Yes.
Member Gozi, Member Hendel,
Yes.
Member Howard,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Lenhoff,
Abstain.
Member Port,
Yes.
Member Solly,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Walker,
Yes.
Member Zhang.
Yes.
There are 15 ayes, 3 abstentions, and 1 absence.
The recommendation passes. We'll move on to the next recommendation. Recommendation 14 includes basically just a bullet point addition, which is develop a technological solution to address the variety of documentation needed for different services. This came to us from Commissioner Zhang and is part of strengthening our recommendation regarding coordinated entry and what we need to do to make it work better for renters. Are there any clarifying questions? If not, I will move recommendation number 14.
Second.
Second.
Member Abraham,
Yes.
Member Brennan,
Yes.
Member Brickwetti,
Pass.
Member Cashman,
Yes.
Member Cocking,
Abstain.
Member Cordis,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Flannery,
Yes.
Member Gozi, Member Hendel,
Yes.
Member Howard,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Lenhoff,
Abstain.
Member Port,
Yes.
Member Solly,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Walker,
Yes.
Member Zhang.
Yes.
There are 15 ayes, 3 abstentions, and 1 absence.
The recommendation is adopted. We'll move on to the next recommendation. Or is that all of them?
There are 3 more.
3 more. Okay, sorry, we lost the screen, so I got a little confused here. If we could get the PowerPoint back.
Are members able to see the PowerPoint? Because I can.
Oh,
I
I
can.
got it. Sorry, just a technical pushing buttons over here. Back on program here. Recommendation number 15. There's no changes to this recommendation. The task force recommends granting authority to and strengthening the operating capacity of the Interagency Stabilization Group to collaborate among funders to support both preservation and stabilization of affordable properties. Any clarifying questions? If not, I will move recommendation 15.
Second.
Member Abraham.
Yes.
Member Brennan.
Yes.
Member Brickwetti.
Pass.
Member Cashman.
Yes.
Member Cocking.
Abstain.
Member Cordis.
Yes.
Member Downey.
Yes.
Member Flannery.
Yes.
Member Gozi. Member Hendel.
Yes.
Member Howard.
Yes.
Member Jones.
Yes.
Member Lenhoff.
Abstain.
Member Port.
Yes.
Member Solly.
Yes.
Member Sherman.
Yes.
Member Thompson.
Yes.
Member Walker.
Yes.
Member Zhang.
Yes.
There are 15 ayes, 3 abstentions, and 1 absence.
The recommendation prevails. Draft recommendation number 16. The task force recommends increasing funding for SAHA, which is the State Affordable Housing Aid, to enable counties flexible funding to stabilize affordable housing based on local needs and priorities. I'll move recommendation number 16.
Second.
Member Abraham.
Approve.
Member Brennan.
Yes.
Member Brickwetti.
Pass.
Member Cashman.
Yes.
Member Cocking.
Abstain.
Member Cordis.
Yes.
Member Downey.
Yes.
Member Flannery.
Yes.
Member Gozi. Member Hendel.
Yes.
Member Howard.
Yes.
Member Jones.
Yes.
Member Lenhoff.
Abstain.
Member Port.
Yes.
Member Solly.
Yes.
Member Sherman.
Yes.
Member Thompson.
Yes.
Member Walker.
Yes.
Member Zhang.
Yes.
There are 15 ayes, 3 abstentions, and 1 absence.
The motion prevails. We'll move on to the next recommendation. Draft recommendation number 17. The task force recommends encouraging and/or incentivizing LAHA, local affordable housing aid, recipients to pool programs to maximize impact on the highest priority needs within the affordable housing system and alleviate fragmentation of resources and multiple funding applications across so many jurisdictions. Are there any clarifying questions? If not, I will move recommendation 17.
Second.
Member Abraham.
Yes.
Member Brennan.
Yes.
Member Brickwetti.
Pass.
Member Cashman.
Yes.
Member Cocking.
Abstain.
Member Cordis.
Yes.
Member Downey.
Yes.
Member Flannery.
Yes.
Member Gozi. Member Hendel.
Yes.
Member Howard.
Yes.
Member Jones.
Yes.
Member Lenhoff.
Abstain.
Member Port.
Yes.
Member Solly.
Yes.
Member Sherman.
Yes.
Member Thompson.
Yes.
Member Walker.
Yes.
Member Zhang.
Yes.
There being 5 ayes, 3 abstentions, and 1 absence.
The motion prevails. I believe we've gotten through our recommendations, and we have 2 more remaining votes, and I'll pass it to Senator Port.
Thank you, Chair Howard and members. Now I move to approve. Well, our 2 final votes are to approve the draft report as edited during today's meeting, and then to authorize staff to prepare and the chairs to approve meeting minutes. So I move to approve the draft report as edited during today's meeting. Staff are authorized to prepare the report and include any technical changes that are necessary. The chair and vice chair are authorized to approve and work with staff to submit the final report.
Second.
Member Abraham,
Yes.
Member Brennan,
Yes.
Member Brickwetti,
Yes.
Member Cashman,
Yes.
Member Cocking,
Aye.
Member Cordis,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Flannery,
Yes.
Member Gozi, Member Hendel,
Yes.
Member Howard,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Lenhoff,
Yes.
Member Port,
Yes.
Member Solly,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Walker,
Yes.
Member Zhang.
Yes.
There are 18 ayes and 1 absence.
The motion prevails. And now I move to authorize staff to prepare and the chairs to approve the meeting minutes from today's meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Member Abraham,
Yes.
Member Brennan,
Yes.
Member Brickwetti,
Yes.
Member Cashman,
Yes.
Member Cocking,
Aye.
Member Cordis,
Yes.
Member Downey,
Yes.
Member Flannery,
Yes.
Member Gozi, Member Hendel,
Yes.
Member Howard,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Lenhoff,
Yes.
Member Port,
Yes.
Member Solly,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Walker,
Yes.
Member Zhang.
Yes.
There are 18 ayes and 1 absence.
The motion prevails. As we sort of wrap up this final meeting, I want to again say a heartfelt thanks to each member of this task force and to my co-chair, Representative Howard. We have had valued conversations through these task force meetings in small groups and with members in between meetings, and we really appreciate the thoughtfulness and the care you have all brought to these conversations. I would now like to just open the floor to any of our members, especially if you haven't spoken today, but any of our members to share some thoughts on this process and the final task force. So if any members would like to share comments, now is the time. You can raise your hand or flag in the chat for us that you'd like to speak. Chris.
I just want to thank everyone for all the work the last 4 months on this effort to come forward with recommendations and solutions to drive the long-term sustainability of affordable housing in the state of Minnesota. It's a collective effort amongst all of us, from our policymakers to staff, the public side, private side, nonprofits and for-profits. And as we look at the solutions we've come up with, there's a lot of great content within it. I really appreciate being a part of this group as we look to bring forward optimal solutions that allow us to bring forward private investment into the state of Minnesota alongside the very strategic public investments being made through our programs. And I just want to say thank you to allowing me to be a part of this and really appreciate everyone's time and effort on this effort. I'm saying effort too much, but thank you.
Thanks, Chris. James.
Yeah, a little bit of similar, and then to add in a bit to it. So I came into this task force with the good fortune of having met most of you, not quite all of you. I'm particularly appreciative of the small group that I got to work with and work through some really tough language, and also finding some really common ground on some great language as we look forward to some of the next steps here. And just, on a personal note, as a person that grew up in affordable homes, and I'm going to guess I'm not the only one in this group that has a similar experience with that, you recognize and know the importance of the affordable housing ecosystem that we have here in Minnesota and the importance of both preservation and where we can add to that portfolio. So just thanks to everyone that participates. That to the earlier comment I had, both the for-profits and the nonprofits that work in that space. And then just, where there is a difference in opinions or perspectives or how we might approach this work, what I know is that there's a common ground on the goal of where we want to land. So even as we work through what the next steps look like, and there's going to be a difference of opinions and thoughts on how to best do that, it's coming from a place of passion, because every single person here, I'm quite confident, wants to end up in a much better spot than where we are. And to figure out where we can best support together, even when there's a variety of different ideas, and that hopefully gets us to the best idea that we can find. So thank you everyone for the work around that.
Thank you, James. Andrea.
Yes, thank you. I want to first just thank you, Senator Port, and Representative Howard for taking such a leadership role in trying to help address or identify meaningful solutions and responses to this emergent and critical issue that unfortunately is going to be with us for a while. And I think that it's a huge accomplishment to have a set of recommendations that the vast majority of task force members agree with, and really think that a lot of that is due to the strong leadership and your commitment to getting actionable recommendations out of this task force. So I really want to thank you. Also want to thank the LCC and MAD staff and my colleagues here, all of the other task force members that have dedicated their time and expertise to doing this important work. I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Commissioner Zhang.
Thank you, Chair Port. I just want to echo those same sentiments that, oh, I'm so sorry, just a minute. Come back to me, please.
No worries, Commissioner. Scott.
So thank you, and just wanted to amplify things that were already said. Of course, thank you to the chairs. I agree with everything Andrea just said about your leadership in steering this ship through short periods of time, quite frankly, and complicated issues. And thank you again to everybody on this task force for coming in ready to roll our sleeves up, deal with complexity in good faith. And I find it remarkable, actually, the amount of consensus that we've been able to find here on, again, these really, really challenging issues. I also wanted to just amplify the importance and the quality of the narrative. I think in 2 pages it really captures kind of the essence of why we're all here and what the housing industry writ large is up against. And I just would like to just touch on 3 things from that report that, again, to amplify them. One is the pandemic really broke us. It broke the systems that are important to a well-functioning communities. Housing is obviously, the housing systems are obviously a part of that. But we've seen stretched public safety systems, increased mental and chemical health acuity, persistent long-term homelessness, all these things that are adjacent to housing are part of the challenges that we face. And so to just recognize that we didn't get here quickly, none of us caused it, but we have to find our way out of it together. And then on that note, time is of the essence. We've heard a lot from all of us, and certainly speak for my organization, that the financial challenges are real and are not getting better quickly or quickly enough. And many organizations, many buildings, many households are on the brink financially. And to get to work of implementing these solutions is going to be really important. And then the kind of the acuity and safety issues too are part of that as well. And then the last thing is our work is really just beginning, and the work ahead of us is going to require intensive cross organizational, cross jurisdictional collaboration, and I think we all know that coming into it. But I'm looking forward to that work and digging in with you all here as soon as we adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair Port. I just wanted to give a big gratitude to both of you as chair of this task force, and also being thoughtful on who to pull and convene as leaders around affordable housing. So with that said, I really want to give kudos to our Association of Minnesota County Staff for helping creating a process. They were very intentional about wanting someone from the Metro and someone from Greater Minnesota to be represented here, and allowing for county voices to be uplifted and amplified in this space. Since we are also the ones who provide a lot of those direct services. In addition to that, I've learned a tremendous amount from the presentations, as well as so many of the task force members here, hearing your perspectives, hearing what you go through, but also seeing that we are all going the same direction together in wanting to preserve and build more affordable housing, that this is a crisis point. So I just really believe that, if anyone can do it, it's the state of Minnesota. It is all of you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will just jump in and say, again, thank you for all the time and energy you put into this, but also thank you for showing up with a spirit of collaboration. These are complex, difficult issues that we have tackled over the last 4 months. And the fact that people came with such different point of views and different understandings of what this whole landscape looks like, but came willing to listen to everyone else, I think is just, it's absolutely core to why we were able to put together a really strong slate of recommendations that had really overwhelming support from the majority of the task force on every single recommendation. Also, I came to the legislature believing that task forces are the place good ideas go to die. And I don't think that anymore, primarily because of MAD and LCC staff that I've worked with on multiple task forces now. I cannot overstate how necessary your skills and your time and energy outside of the task forces are to really giving us the opportunity to be successful. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I will always share anything with my co-chair, Mike. You are just an awesome partner as always to do this work with. And I know I speak for both of us when I say we understand that this is a first step and that none of this matters if we don't continue this process in legislative work. Not just that we take it and move with it, but that we continue to do this work with all of you. And with the many, many people who have followed along and understand these issues. So I look forward to continuing to have these conversations as we move into the legislative arena, and understand that this is going to take time, but that we now have a really strong roadmap of some of the first steps that we can take. So I'm so grateful for you all to help give us those steps that we can move together. Joe.
Great. Well, like so many others, thanks. It's been great getting to know some new people here, and of course, thanks to our chairs. I think Scott said it, and we all recognize it. Like the hard work starts now. I mean, we're not exactly spiking the football. We've got so much work still to do here, and so in that vein, I want to leave you 3 of my thoughts that anytime I'm involved in task force or committees, I try to remind people of. Number one, I really think it's important that the people on this call dedicate their lives and their careers to improving housing. So as you're going in other task force, other committees, other work, please think about how we develop a bigger and bigger regional, a bigger approach towards the housing ecosystem. Let's work on a more regional approach to everything we do in housing. And that includes preservation, production, everything we do. The second is that it's easy to focus on the rental rates for housing. Let's make sure that our energy is focused on the cost of housing. How do we bring that down, or how do we mitigate the increases to housing? And the third thing is, and I don't know that a lot of people recognize this, I've probably said it here before, but Minnesota enjoys a lot of local ownership at all levels. The small mom and pops, the mid-sized guys like me, the larger developers and operators. And I hope you'll, wherever you go, I hope you'll use that resource. That you will always find owners that are willing to participate and give input and feedback in whatever form you need it. And so as you move along, if you can't find someone, call Chris or I or whoever. We'll get people that would be appropriate to help you out. So please, let's not, that is a resource that most states don't enjoy to the level that we do. And so please utilize that. And thanks again to everyone.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else want to share final thoughts before I turn it to Chair Howard? All right. Thank you for engaging and sharing your feedback at this moment, as well as through the entire task force. And now I will turn it over to Chair Howard to close us out.
I have to also echo gratitude to my co-chair, sometimes my partner in crime, partner in all this work. It's a joy to work together and move this important work forward, and a joy to work with all of you on this task force. Some that we've had a chance to work with for many years, and some folks that we've got to interact with for the first time on this task force. And it is really an impressive room of folks doing such meaningful, important work for Minnesotans. And that's what I think I wanted to leave us with, where we started, which is the why. And why we're all doing this work is because we believe that every Minnesotan should have access to a safe and stable home. And that is an incredibly challenging thing for too many of our constituents. And it's getting challenging, it's getting harder, it requires action. And so I guess the last thing I would say is to challenge all of us that the work should actually ramp up after we submit this report to the legislature. And if I had to sum up what we've heard and learned from all of you on this task force, it's that the status quo isn't working. The status quo is failing Minnesotans. So we all need to be challenged to adopt that, not in our words, but with our actions. And I have to say, I do believe that the administration needs to hear that challenge a little bit more loudly and clearly as well. I've appreciated their participation in this task force, but it's relevant to note that the governor's housing budget included $0 new to address the challenges that we've been talking about for months and months. And the administration abstained or voted no on over half of these recommendations. I would argue that that's not good enough. We need to see the administration get off the sidelines and take this challenge as seriously as everyone on this call. There is important, great work and great partnership that's happening at Minnesota Housing. But what we all need to understand and internalize is that what we're doing right now isn't good enough. That's what this task force should say, and we should feel that in our bones that we need to do better. And the recommendations that this task force are putting together, I believe, can put us on a path to a state where Minnesotans have access to a safe and stable home. This cannot sit on a shelf. This cannot be a report that is about, as Joe mentioned, spiking the football and thinking we've done something. The work begins after this task force. And thanks to everyone on this task force, we're in a better position than ever before to do that systems change work. And so the last thing I'll say is let's get to work. Thank you to everyone on this task force, and I look forward to the partnership ahead. Thank you. And with that, I'll just a few housekeeping. This final report will be finalized and submitted to the legislature and agency leaders by February 1st, 2025. The LCC will also share out the link to task force members and we'll have a brief evaluation survey. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to our staff. And with that, this meeting and this task force is adjourned.
Jesse?
Sorry. Oh,
I just wanted clarification on how will the report be like publicized or communicated externally, and like how will we be able to share that?
Evelyn?
Yeah, so the final report will be shared out to chairs of various committees identified in the statute. It will also be posted on the website that all of the documentation has been on, and then it will also be uploaded into the legislative reference library. So that would be probably the best place for external folks to be accessing that, but it is around in it will be around in various locations.
the other thing I'd say, this is what Chair Port I'm sure was going to say too. We want to have legislative hearings on this report, and we want to work with you all to see legislation come of this work. And so to the more work ahead, there's work offline and in coalition and in work that will help move this needle forward. But some initial steps, hopefully we'll have a legislative committee hearing soon and work in earnest to develop some legislative recommendations on the things that require legislative action.
Joe?
Just because I don't know the process here, maybe some people have already asked this, but if there is this time when this is going to be sort of like discussed somewhere in the legislature, like it'd be pretty great if we all were there.
Yes.
You know, for those of us that can make it and we're present in the room, and I could kind of, you know, just sort of strengthens your message, I think. So for those that can make it and are willing and are interested, maybe if you get to that point, if you could let us know, for some of us that aren't tied in on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's a great flag, Joe. We are in the Senate, I can say, still scheduling out all of our committee hearings, but it's likely to be shortly after the February 1st date when we receive the report. Probably in the next week or two following that is when I will hold a committee hearing on this. And I will be sure that myself or my CA send out a request to notify all of you. And I would like, you all to be able to testify, share your thoughts, add your insight to that. I think that the value of this task force is the various different places we come at this from. So I will definitely be reaching out from my side. Want to flag that in the chat, Sam put the link to the survey. Please complete that survey. It is really helpful for future task forces to know what worked, what didn't work, those sorts of things. Please be honest. It is really, really helpful for us to get solid feedback from everyone on the task force. All right.
I'll do take two on adjournment. We just have so much fun together, right? We just stop. So thank you again so much. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks all.